Hello and welcome to Techiechap. In today's episode, I will be taking a look at a Chinese distribution called Deepin Linux, and it's version 20.6, which currently is the latest version. Now, this distribution is touted as being one of the best looking distributions or even operating systems out on the market at the moment. So, let's find out how I got on after the intro. Deepin desktop. This is version 20.6 and it's the latest version at time of recording, and it looks pretty special, it has to be said. I've installed Kdenlive and OBS Studio, and that's it on this release, and it's by default put the icon shortcuts on the desktop there, which is I find the default behavior to do that a little bit irritating because I'm not keen on those icons being on the desktop. But if you are a Windows user, you'll probably be quite familiar with that behavior. And indeed, if I wanted to add that to my dock down here, I can just drag it down here and there it is. There's Kdenlive now sitting in my dock. In fact, I can also arrange that and pop that somewhere else as well, and that works very well indeed. Now the panel down here looks fantastic. It's got a lovely level of transparency to it, and as you can see, you've got a notification center, and you've got your trash bin or recycle bin. You've got a very nice little calendar. I do like that the Deepin apps all have this sort of rounded corner look to them as well. It does look very modern. The calendar itself is very basic. There's not a lot you can do in here other than manually adding your calendar items, and also creating different types of event types. So it's fairly basic, but definitely functional. Also, you have a onboard keyboard as well for those with touch screens, or if you had this installed on a tablet, you could run a onboard keyboard or a convertible laptop. You've got the grand search as well, which is basically their sort of quick search, and as you can see, that works well. Their settings manager is called Control Center. Down here we have the kind of sys tray icons which you can minimize or expand if you want more space on your dock. I'm recording in OBS at the moment, so we have a OBS icon here. We've got your volume icon here. You have your network, and as you can see, it's detected my wireless card, which is a Realtek wireless card, and it's detected that without any issues whatsoever. Quite impressed. And you get Bluetooth, and also you can go straight to the power plan manager for battery settings as well. At the moment, great, all fantastic. You then get your default applications in the center of the dock here, and if we just go through those, you have a file manager. The file manager again looks fantastic. The icon theme looks really, really nice. But what you will see, having gone through the 3 gig installer, is that you do need at least more than 65 gig of hard disk space to install it, and it will take up all of your hard disk space. I'm not sure if there's an option to install alongside another operating system. And as you can see here, it has this partition called System Disk, and within here you will find the default Linux system that you would expect to see. Things like etc, home, lib, lib32, lib64, etc. are all in here. sbin, srv, sys, var, they are all there. Then you get data disk, and data disk seems to be the area where your data gets stored. And also here you have your shortcuts to things like documents and downloads and music, etc, etc. Whilst we're looking at music, we'll just take a look at the music player. and as you can see, that works pretty well. And if we look in here at the settings, at what you can do with the Deepin music player, again, the options are fairly straightforward. There's not a lot of things you can do in here. There doesn't seem to be a way, for example, to link into a radio station. It just seems to be able to play music that is installed on your laptop itself. So if you've got an extensive library, then obviously the music player will do a good job of playing that. So that's fine. Let me just confirm I want to quit that. It's interesting, it comes up that do you want to minimize to system tray. So that's an interesting thing there. Okay, going back to File Manager. The File Manager really isn't as advanced as things like Dolphin or anything like that. This is much more like a very basic file manager. However, you do get thumbnails enabled by default. What you will be missing is things like split view and things like that. However, this does seem to be perfectly functional, and as I said before, the Deepin applications do integrate well and have a lot of polish to them in terms of how they appear, with the rounded corners and the familiar theme as well. So going along here, we have our browser, and the browser is called Browser, interestingly enough, and it uses Google as its search. You can choose Baidu, when Baidu is China's version of Google, or you can use Bing or any of these other search as well. Now this browser is actually based on Chromium, so as you can see, when we go to settings, you actually see Chrome settings, and then it tells you a little bit about the browser itself. So it's actually built off a base of Chromium. So you would expect it to behave in much the same way as Chromium, and indeed if I was to go to YouTube site, for example, let's just see if that works. It's fairly slow, but this is the first time I've been there. Okay, and let's just have a look.
Win at work by communicating.
Great, so that works fine. Let me just close that. So browser works fine. Now let's have a look at the App Store. Now the App Store is this little orange icon here with the carrier bag handle, and you can, I believe, set up a login for Deepin. However, I think that is based only in China. But as you can see, I have actually installed Deepin before, but not reviewed it, mainly because the Deepin I looked at, it was a good few years ago. When I launched the App Center, it was all in Chinese. However, this App Center has clearly moved on quite a bit, and it really does look very, very nice. And in fact, you can install Chrome straight from the App Store, which is quite surprising, and also something called Firefox Quantum, which is apparently Firefox and some rich plugins. I might have a look at that and see what version it is. So I might as well click that to install. As you can see, installing is very quick and also very easy. It's literally just a question of clicking on install and away it goes. So these are editor's choice, and you also have Steam as well. You've got some other things down here. Let's just have a look at all. Let's just see what applications it will bring up. Okay, so actually most of the applications, when you just click on all, they are in English. They're not in Chinese. There's only one that I've seen potentially, but yeah, so very comfortable in here in terms of navigating the application manager. There's really been clearly a lot of work put into this. to just customize it and make it a bit more accessible for Western markets. Yeah, actually really good. So that's going to go off and install those things. In fact, it has. That shows how quick it installs. Let's just take a look at Chrome, and there it is. There is Chrome. Let's see, help about Google Chrome, version 103.0. Okay, and now let's look at Firefox. Given that I've just installed two browsers, that really did install pretty quickly. Help and about. Okay, yeah, 102.0.1. So actually fairly up to date as well. So that's actually pretty good. Yeah, quite impressed with that. And okay, so we also have our album, and album is really like well, I guess photos in Macworld. Not sure what the Windows app version of it, probably photos as well. And it's just for managing your photos. Unfortunately, I haven't got any photos on here. In fact, though, what I could do is, I think if I just take a screenshot, and let's see, right, I'll just take a screenshot of this, and right, okay, and then if I go to the file manager, let's click on home. Is it in there? Maybe it's in pictures, screenshots. There we are. And let's just drop that in. Okay, so it's not the most special photograph I wanted to look at, but I did just want to see what settings were in here as a photo. You know, what you could do with it. So for example, you could display it in File Manager, set it as wallpaper, extract text, which is quite cool. So I wonder how that works. Alright, so what does that do? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's actually interpreted the text in the photograph. That's actually pretty cool. Right, fit to window, extract text, rotate. No actual sort of edit options though, which is a little bit of a shame. Photo info. So it doesn't look like you can actually edit the photo, you know, change the color gradient or anything like that within here. But that extract text option is pretty neat. Right, so that's photos. Music we've just had a look at. Calendar we've seen before. And yeah, so that is really the Deepin apps that you see from the start. Also on the left here you have multitasking view. Then you've got your show desktop as well. And actually, does it support? Doesn't support multi-gesture. I'm running this on the Dell laptop here, but it doesn't seem to support Dell. Either doesn't support the Dell trackpad for multi-gesture, or it's not something this distribution does. Going into settings, you will find something called biometric authentication, and that isn't necessarily for fingerprints, unfortunately, because I do have a fingerprint reader on this Dell, but it's for your face. Well, not your face, my face. Yes, my face at this moment, but it could be for your face. Anyway, for faces, and you can basically add a face, and let's have a look. Click next. Let's see if it works. All right, and yeah, okay. My face has been enrolled, and yeah, so I'll have to test that out and see if that works. I wonder if I can get that to work now. Lock. All right, and then can I go face? Verification successful. Okay, great. Okay, I'm in. Hopefully you saw that on the OBS recording. It did actually unlock the system with my face. I'm not sure how it did it very quickly. I'm not sure how reliable that is, but yeah, it did it pretty well. You've got your display settings, and you can set things like night shift, so it can get darker as the day wears on, which is quite nice. Deepin ID, however, that only is supported for mainline China at present. Default applications, so you can choose what application, and I've just installed Google Chrome. Interesting to see that Firefox was also installed but is not listed here. However, I could probably go and find the Firefox application and add that there manually. Mail, so at the moment I think there is a mail manager by default. In fact, we'll just take a look for that. Where is it? Mail, here we go. So there is a mail client built into Deepin, and you can add a Google Mail or Yahoo Mail, and then you just pop in your details there. I won't be popping in my details into this. Does it tell me anything about this? Okay. So it does seem like quite a nice mail manager, and you can connect with things like IMAP as well. It does, the fact that it can connect into Yahoo Mail and Gmail as well, it seems quite nice. Yeah, it looks like it could be quite a nice email manager, but I'm not going to put my details in at this stage. Alright, so moving on, personalization, you've got light, auto and dark. Auto is when it will change to dark mode during the evening, which is quite nice, and also you get dark mode, and the dark mode is consistent all the way throughout. So for example, if I click on calendar, I now have a dark calendar, and settings has now gone dark. If I click on App Store is not dark theme, so that's interesting that despite me choosing dark, the App Store is still light theme, and that's a shame. Let's just try Photos. Photos is dark theme, and music, let's just check. Yeah, music is dark theme, so it's only the App Store that is not dark theme, and the browser is now dark theme as well as the file manager. So that's quite nice. Anyway, I'm going to change it back to light, and as you can see, it instantly changes. Really, really cool. There's also an icon by default on the desktop, Deepin Forum, and this is just their forum really of help and assistance, and you can create new threads here, which is quite nice. So if you need any help, you can go straight to the Deepin Forum. You can also take things like voice notes as well. If you just click on here, you can record your voice and take a voice note, which is pretty decent. Simple scan. Simple scan, is that just regular simple scan? Let's have a look. Yeah, it's regular simple scan. As you can see, however, if it's not a Deepin app, then it does default back to a sort of default look without the curved corners, for example. So that's a little bit of a shame that the rounded corners couldn't be kept throughout. System monitor. So let's see exactly how much is this system taking up. As you can see, with OBS, it's running quite high, the CPU, but it's 28.3% on the CPU at the moment, and in terms of memory, 409.2 on the CPU. But obviously I'm recording at full HD as well as stereo audio as well. However, the other applications are fairly low in system resource, and saying that the desktop does seem to take up quite a bit of memory for a desktop, but obviously you could change that if you wanted to be a little bit more leaner with efficient mode. Let me just show you how we do that. So dock settings, That should bring up here. At the moment it's set to fashion mode. Let's switch it to efficient mode. Let's see what changes that has made. Alright, so desktop still takes about the same amount of memory, to be honest, 338.5. So maybe desktop is more than just desktop. Let me just change dock settings again. Let's change it back to fashion mode. Doesn't seem to make any difference whatsoever. Okay, I mean, essentially it is fairly heavy for a system, but that's given what you're looking at here, it's perhaps one of the more impressive desktops out there of any desktops in terms of Mac and Windows included. So yeah, it's fairly high on actual resource though. I think that's to be expected. This isn't something that you would run on a low resource machine. This would probably be something that you would run on a pretty high-end machine if you were going to run this day in and day out. Now, if I go to settings again, and if we can just go to system info, you can see that the OS is Deepin, it's version 20, and it's community edition 20.6. The kernel is 5.15.34, and that's just my CPU there, the i5, and it's running 8 gig of RAM in my Dell. So let's just double check that the kernel that is listed in settings is correct. I'm sure it will be, and it is. uname-r reveals that it is 5.15.34 kernel. 5.15 is really not too old, so that's pretty good. And yeah, so that's nice that is there. So I have to say, given that I'm running this on this i5 4th gen with 8 gig of RAM, it is running quite snappily and running, I think, pretty well. And it's certainly a system that nails it in terms of looks. I think if you were a Mac user or a Windows user looking to move across to something, this could well be it. There is an awful lot going for this distribution. The one thing I would say is that when you do install, or if you do install Deepin, there is a EULA license agreement that you have to agree to. However, the Deepin, the people at Deepin, because there were issues a few years ago with Deepin collecting information, they no longer do that. And from what we can see on here, in terms of the last few releases, they are definitely don't seem to be doing that at the moment. So is this a safe release? I would say, yeah, it probably is a safe release at the moment, mainly because they don't seem to be collecting data any longer, and it's arguable that the data that they were collecting was for improved analytics. In fact, if you have installed Windows 10 at any point recently, you will have to go through a number of screens asking you whether you want to give up all your information to give to advertising people to send better advertisements tailored towards your expectations, etc., and improved user experiences. So I think Microsoft perhaps goes far deeper in terms of collecting analytics data. At least they give you the option to opt out. However, they still collect data on you quite clearly when you're using the Windows 10 desktop. In this case, it doesn't seem to be the case that they are on this system. You can also download Deepin as a desktop on things like Ubuntu as well as a desktop environment. So if you really weren't keen on the full Deepin experience, then you could run it as a desktop environment on top of something like Ubuntu. But what I'm running here is the full Deepin experience, and it has all the Deepin apps that they have written. There's even an app called Draw on here, and as you can see, any Deepin app, it's really they're really attractive looking, if a little bit basic in functionality. So again, within the Draw app, you can't do layers, for example. This is more like something like Paint or something like that, not too advanced. And but I do have to say, it's really nice to use, and really well put together. Things like the categories work well, so you've got some games like Lian Yan Can and Gomoku, which I think looks like a Sudoku type thing. I could be completely wrong on that, I don't know, I have to give that a go. There's a lot going for Deepin, it has to be said, and it's actually a pretty decent release. And yeah, I would give this probably, I would say, given the amount of work gone into this and also what it could do for the Linux community as a whole, if people are thinking of moving away from Windows or Apple, I think I will give this a 4 out of 5. So that's been my review of Deepin 20.6. And I hope you have enjoyed this review. If you have, please like and subscribe. And if you run Deepin, or if you have any thoughts about Deepin, then please do leave them in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.